So we would like to carry on with our discussion of, algebraic expressions. Now, we have had discussions about evaluating algebraic expression, and we saw that in evaluating algebraic expression, we get to substitute the variables, the values of these variables inside the algebraic expression. And we saw that an algebraic expression is basically a description of how a calculation has got to be carried out and in what pattern is that calculation going to be carried out. So we saw how the actual value of the description can be got. There is the description that you want to get this, first start by doing this, then you do that. So for example, think of a number, multiply by 2, then add 5 to it. So that is an algebraic expression which can be written in the mathematical way, okay, like 2x plus 5. Then the variable in this expression is x. Now, suppose that we know the value of x, then we just substitute that value of x right in the expression, and we find the final value of the whole expression. That is known as evaluating algebraic expression. Now, algebraic expression also has got operations that happens on them. Things like adding algebraic expressions, we already discussed that. Subtracting algebraic expressions, we also discussed that. On each of them, I gave you an activity to do right away, from evaluating algebraic expression, which you did, then adding algebraic expression, which you did not do, then subtracting algebraic expression, you also did not do the activity which was part of the what, which came later as part of the what, of the lesson. And I would like to encourage you to find time and do that before the end of this week. Then later you submit your work either on WhatsApp or you can upload it on Moodle. Then I check through and correct it. Now, what we would like to look at today, or what I would like to explain for you today, is the concept of multiplying algebraic expressions. Suppose that we have algebraic expressions that we are multiplying. How do we deal with it? How do we do that? How do we multiply algebraic expressions? Now, notice that when the expression, or when the two expressions are each monomial, like one term and one term, like for example, when you have 2x, then you're multiplying with 4x, then the numbers multiply themselves and the variables also multiply themselves. And that is where we borrow a little bit of the knowledge of the laws of exponents. If the variables are the same, like x and x, then we have to multiply the two and simplify it by what? By adding the exponents. Now, what if it is not that obvious case? How would we handle it? How would we deal with the case of what? Of multiplications that are not that obvious. Now, we would like to look at that right away. So I'm just going to be sharing with you a screen right here. Then I just discuss for you what I've just been explaining in what we are going to be discussing in detail today. I've just been sharing with you a little bit of the introduction of what we would like to discuss today. And so right here is a screen that I'm sharing. Now, what I said is, if you would like to multiply algebraic expressions, suppose that the algebraic expression, okay, suppose that the algebraic expression is like 2x, okay, that we have to multiply with what? With 4x. Now, notice that a lot of times, multiplication of algebraic expressions will involve the use of a bracket. For example, you would have things like this 2x in its own bracket and the what? And the 4x in its separate brackets. So you would be having here 2x, and you would be having there what? 4x. Now, when you multiply these two with the bracket, it would still be the same thing as multiplying it without a bracket. And the rule here is that, well, just increase the size a little bit. Oh, sorry. Okay. Just this, yes. Right. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So now here is the thing. What do we do? How do we handle the case of multiplying algebraic expressions? Now, to deal with multiplying algebraic expressions, what happens is the numbers multiply themselves, okay? And here the numbers are what? The numbers are 2 and 4. So they multiply themselves. And notice that we can put them in their own what? In their own bracket. Then later, we would consider having what? We would consider having another bracket. So in this case, we are going to be having 2 in the first bracket and what? And 4 in the first bracket. Then now the next quantity to deal with is what? Is x. So this x that we are having, we also have to multiply it with this other second x. Now notice that if the second x was like, for example, x squared or x cubed, you know, or x with exponent 4, you would still deal with them like that, because what you're having is the letters multiply themselves and the numbers also multiply themselves. What would this mean is, after writing 2 times 4, the next thing you want to include is x times x. That is x times x, like that. So what would this simplify to? Well, this would simplify to, in the first bracket, we would multiply 2 by what? 2 by 4, and we get 8. In the second bracket, we get x times x, which gives us what? Not 2x, but x squared, okay? Because we will have to add the what? We will have to add the exponents. Since x is the same as x, the first x is the same as the second x, so all of them are xx. So we do what? We simplify them by adding the exponents. That is how we would deal with that case. Now, if we are having something a little bit more complex, like for example, well, we get 2x, let's say we have 2x. This time, we are supposed to multiply this with, for example, well, let's use a bracket for this. Let's suppose that we are multiplying this with 4x plus 1. How will this come out? You see this? How do we multiply this type? All these are algebraic what? Expressions. I would like to put this also in its own what? Its own bracket, right? Like that. So how do we deal with this type of multiplication? How do we expand this? How do we simplify this? Now, to simplify this, what we would like to do, or what we will do, is this 2x will multiply 4x, okay? Just put it like this. The 2x will multiply the what? Will multiply the 4x. Then it will later multiply the what? It will later multiply 1. What am I trying to say? Well, what I'm trying to say here is that this 2x, which is inside one bracket, okay, just put it right like this. We will use it to multiply for the first time 4x, also in its own bracket, like that. That is the first deal. Then this 2x must also multiply 1. In other words, we can have now this plus, which is right here. Then we now bring the 2x, okay? So we'll be having there the 2x, which again have got to multiply what? I've got to multiply the 1, like that. You see how we break it down? Well, in this case, the next step will give us exactly what we already had up here, which is what? Which is going to be 8x squared for the first what? For the first 2x and the 4x. So we are going to be having 8x squared. Then this plus will come in. We will be having 2x times 1. So you would like to think of anything times 1. It's like anything appearing once. It's exactly that thing. And so we will write it as what? As 2x. Now, this is how we carry out the multiplication of algebraic expressions. I'm going to be sharing again with you another screen where we have the overall, kind of general expressions. Suppose that we have this. See? Now, in this first example, we have been given this, and that is what we have to multiply. We are supposed to multiply 4x squared with what? All the quantities inside the bracket, that is 3x squared minus 5x plus 9. How do we deal with this? Now, as indicated here in the second step, what we are going to do is the 4x, which is right outside here, this 4x, we will have to use it to multiply everything inside the bracket, starting with 3x squared. That's the reason you see what? That's the reason you see this arrow here, like this line rather, getting all the way to there. Then in the second step, we will have to multiply this 4x squared with what? With 5x. We always have to remember to carry the sign in front. Then the 4x squared again, we'll have to multiply what? We'll have to multiply the 9. This way, we can split it down. We can break it down into what? Into 4x squared plus rather times 3x. Then we have this other one here. We now have 4x squared times negative 5x. Then also we have 4x squared times 9. You see that? So when we do it that way, we can then simplify the product, because at this stage, the next thing that we want to do from this stage here, the next thing that we want to do is now to simplify. That is, to simplify means now we have to multiply 4 by 3, then x squared by x squared, then later 4 by negative 5, then x squared and x, then also 4 by 9, like that. Okay? Now, what we are going to have here, I hope it's going to ask, yeah. All right, yes. So this is what we had from the other page. Now, to expand the discussion here, we are going to multiply this 4 by this other 4. Notice that when we multiply 4 times what? Rather 4 times 3. When we multiply this 4 times this 3, we get 12. Now, when we multiply this x by this other x, x squared by x squared, we get what? We get x with exponent what? Exponent 4. Like that, because we have to add the exponents. Then now, the next thing is to multiply 4 by negative 5. That gives us what? Negative 20. Then we have to multiply x squared by x. What is x squared by x? That is going to be x squared, rather x with exponent 2 plus 1, which is going to be 3. That is 2 for x squared plus 1 for x. Then now we have to multiply 4 by 9. Now notice that 4 by 9 is a positive value. And 4 by 9 is what? It's 36. Now, this 36 that we have so far got will be the coefficient of what? Coefficient of x squared. Now, this way, we get our final answer. This is going to be our final answer. You would want to ask a question that can't we combine these quantities? Can't we combine 12, for example? Can't we combine 12, right? Can't we combine 12, for example, with 20? Can't we do that? Can't we combine 12 with 20? Unfortunately, no, because 12 and 20, they are coefficients of different values of x. For example, this one is x with exponent 4, and this is x with exponent 3, and this other one x with exponent 2. So yes, much as we would have loved to combine, okay, much as we would have loved to combine this, there is no way we can combine it because these ones are coefficients of different quantities. Now, we will be moving on to the next question. We want to see how we can deal with that for the second question. Now, the second question is the second example, which is example 2. Now, in example 2, we have it that this is our second example, that is 3x minus 5y. This is it, 3x minus 5y. 3x minus 5y that we have to multiply with 8x minus 2y. How do we carry out this calculation? Now, to carry out this calculation, as we have seen in the previous examples, we have to multiply this 3x by 8. Then later, the same 3x by minus 2y. Now, that is what we have here. When we pick 3x, we have to use it to multiply 8x and then later 2y. Then we have to take 5y, that we have to use it to multiply 8x and negative 2y. That way, when we multiply 3 by 8, we get 24. When we multiply x by x, we get x squared. And when we move on, that is, there is a minus sign here, we want to write that down. Then when we multiply 3 by 2, we get 6. Then when we multiply x by y, we get xy. See? Then plus. Notice now we have 5y that we have to multiply with 8x and minus 2y. We start by multiplying 5, which is negative, by 8. Now notice that negative 5 times 8 is negative 40. Then we have to multiply this negative 5 times this negative 2. Notice that negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Then we have the what? We have the y squared for y times y, then xy for y times x. Notice that we could have written yx, but it's the same thing. Xy is the same as yx. with multiplication, you can put one number in front of the other. There is no problem. Okay, it's called the commutative property of multiplication. Now, when we are done with this, we will be having 24x squared minus 6xy plus times minus, that is, this will eventually simplify to minus 4xy. Now we have, again, 10y squared. Notice that this 6xy and this 40xy can be combined. Why? Because they are coefficients of the same quantity. The quantity xy is here, and also the quantity what? The quantity xy is right here. So these two can be combined. Notice that the coefficient of xy in the second term here is negative, just like this one. So negative and negative, well, if we are adding them, they stay negative. They only becomes positive when we are multiplying or when we are dividing. Remember that when we are multiplying a negative value times a negative value, it can get to a positive value. But when we are subtracting a negative value from another negative value, it will be a negative. It's like you borrowed some money and again you want to borrow. What do you have? Well, with you will have got some more that you have to pay. The other person will have lost more. You see that type of scenario. So you borrow for the first time and you again borrow. What that then means is you are owing. You have to pay someone more, which occurs to you as a debt, as a negative. So negative 6 times negative 40 is negative 46. With this other one, xy, we keep it there. We don't what? We don't disturb the variables. Then we also have the what? The 10y squared. Now notice that is 24x squared. There is no any other value we can add to help combine it to some other value higher than 24 or less. In the same way, there is no any other value we can add to what? To 10y squared to make it higher than 10y squared or what? Or less. And so this becomes what? Our final answer is what? 24x squared minus 46xy plus 10y squared. Now, one more example. Here we go. Suppose that we have this number to multiply 7x minus 9, which we have to use to multiply 3x squared minus 6x plus 2. How do we carry on the multiplication? Notice that the way we indicated in the previous example, this 7x, which is the first term, we'll have to multiply everything inside what? The bracket. That's the reason we have this. The 7x will have to multiply everything. And so 7x will stand in front of the whole bracket. Then later, we will take this minus 9 that we have to use to multiply what? Everything inside also this bracket here. What will that be? Well, this is going to be minus 9 times that. So when we combine the two, what is this going to be? It's going to be 7x, which is the first term in the first bracket, times all the quantities in the second bracket. Then now we will move to minus 9 here, that is plus minus 9. We again have to use it to multiply everything inside the what? The second bracket. Now notice that even with that separation, we still have a lot of tasks ahead of us. And what are they? We have to multiply this 7 by 3, that is the 7x times 3x squared, then the 7x times what? 6x, and later 7x times 2, which then simplifies. Now, I'm going to pick this just to transfer it so that it's easier for you to see how we are going to proceed with the what? With the calculation. I'm just going to do it on this new page here. Right. So this is what we have, and this is what we have to deal with. Now notice when we multiply 7 times 3, we get 21, okay? And when we multiply x times x squared, we get what? 21x cubed. 21x cubed. Then when we multiply this 7 times 6, This is going to give us negative 42. Now notice that when we multiply this x times this x, we must get what? We must get x squared. So we write it down there as x squared. Then after that, we now want to deal with what? We now want to deal with 7x times 2. Notice that 7 times 2 is 14. Now there isn't anything we have to use to multiply x, so we just write it there. Then 9 times 3. Now 9 times 3 is 27, but notice that it's negative. Then now 27 what? X squared. Then the next thing is 9 times 6. Well, 9 times 6 is going to be a little bit difficult for me to guess that value. You know, it could be anything like 54 or something like that. But, you know, you could check with a calculator. So what we have here is 9 times 6. 9 times 6. Yes, it's 54. So we put here 54. Notice that is going to be positive. The reason is that negative times negative is positive. Then now we have the x there. Then we have 9 times 2, which is 18. 18, which is negative, because negative times positive is negative. So this is what we got so far. Now notice that 21 is the only term with a what? With x cubed. So it's not going to be added to any other quantity. We just put it separately as what? 21 x cubed. Now notice that 42 x squared, this quantity here, 42x squared and what? And 27x squared. They are what? They are like terms. What that means is we can add their coefficients. In other words, we can add the coefficients. How do we do that? Well, we can be like 42, which is a negative value, okay? Minus 27. That gives us 69x squared. So we'll be having minus 60 what? 69x squared. X squared. Then we'll be having the quantities involving x, okay? The quantities involving x, which is what? Which is 14x, okay? Just highlight it so that's easy for you to see. So we'll be having 14x right away, and what? And 54. Now notice that all of them are positive, and because of that, we can add them without any problem. 14 when added to 54 gives us 60 what? 68. Now this 68 is 68x. Then now we have to put the what? We have to put the minus 18, which gives us the what? The final answer to this question. So you can see for yourself, that is what we have got. Now, the next task is going to be for you. Just make sure you watch this. You can do it again and again if there is a part which is not clear, or you can send me a message so that I respond and I explain again the part that you might not have understood. Otherwise, this is going to be it for this our lesson. We will continue from this part.